Everybody. Today I wanted to talk to you about when you have a big idea, how to take it to market, prove your idea, and make it profitable. Here's the thing, is I'm a huge proponent of big dreaming, coming up with big ideas, just delusional, crazy big dreaming. But at the end of the day, we have to then take action behind our dreams. We have to put it into action. We have to create it. We have to bring it to fruition. And this is something that I've seen done. I've done successfully in the companies that I've worked for, both as an employee and I'm currently doing with my clients and my business right now, is taking big ideas to market, thinking ahead of time, and testing the market and making them work profitably. One of the biggest things is that if we have a big idea, unless there's a provable market for it that we know ahead of time, let me back up here. If you have a big idea and it's never been done before, you're going to need quite a bit of financial resources to push it out there, some backing, either self-funded or venture capital. And so that's just how it is. If you've never seen somebody do it before, you're going to have to spend a lot of money. And if you don't have a lot of money, one of the best places to start is to bring your idea down to what's called an MVP, a minimum viable product. And what is simple enough for the marketplace to understand, to take it, the big idea, and bring it down to the baseline level that is easily understood by the most widest audience of people, and then building that audience out from there. So one of the first things to do is to prove the marketability. And the best way to do that is, if you have a big idea, look at everybody, every company in the marketplace that is in that industry, that area. So if you're in health, look at all different health companies, all different health people. If you're in tech, look at all the different tech people. If you're in finance, whatever that is, you have to saturate yourself with the existing market and be able to read it and see where there's needs, where there's problems to solve that nobody's doing yet, but they're big problems that everybody's having. And so the number one thing that I see mistakes that people make with big ideas is there's no market for them. And then they get emotionally attached to the fact that there's no market for them, and they get frustrated. So one of the number one things, if you don't have a lot of finances to put behind something, is you have to know if there is a market or not for what you're putting out there before you do. Otherwise, you will be spending a lot of time and struggling trying to get results before it's ever proved. And so first off, proving your market. Second, really looking at who out there has done what I've done or similar to it, and how can I learn from them? How can I look at how they've done it? It's not about copying, but rather templatizing and reverse engineering, and looking at how has somebody else, another company, taken something to market in a similar way to what I'm doing, and what can I learn from them, from their experience. That way I don't have to work as hard. What happens is the marketplace, especially larger companies, is one of my favorites to learn from, because they have billions of dollars to invest in testing and seeing what works and what doesn't. And then we can then glean from that on a smaller microcosm scale of that. And in that, then we can test the marketability and find out what the MVP is, the minimum viable product, to bring to market, and then see how the marketplace responds. The other thing is to not become emotionally attached to how the marketplace responds. If the marketplace does not respond to what you're putting out there, we have to analyze, is it something that I'm doing, or is there not a market for this? And sometimes there's not, but many times it's how you're doing it. If you know that there is a market for it, there's usually a hiccup along the way of where you're exposing your product or idea to people to the point to where they decide to engage, purchase, or join you in that. Somewhere between that process of them not knowing about you to them being part of your organization, there's a disconnect, and you have to learn how to connect those dots for people and find those points in that. So in this, prove your market idea, and then see what the marketplace then says in that. in this place, then what you can do is if you don't have a lot of capital, if you don't want to bring in a lot of venture capital, you are able to generate capital for yourself that you can then pour into the next step and the next step. So what I suggest is starting out with simple, what we know is marketable, what we know is profitable, that is in the maybe the industry or niche of the idea that we want to go into, that we have the big idea of. If it's not proven yet, exploring what can I do to at least get my foot in the door, and what can I do to get my mind thinking in a way that somebody who would produce this idea would do. And so in that, it's gleaning from and learning. And podcast is one of my favorite ways to do that. Is I love to listen to a lot of tech pioneers and how they talk, read their books, how they think, and how they came up with their ideas. I just listened to one yesterday from employee number 29 at Facebook. And it's funny, he had this big idea. He tried to actually leave Facebook and compete with Facebook, and didn't really go very well for him. But it was really cool to hear his journey about what he learned along that process. And so in that, what I want to encourage you with is this, is that if you have a big idea, take a look first at the marketability of it, saturate yourself in the market, as much information as you can learn in that field, in that market. What have other people done? What are they not doing? What are problems that people have, and how can I solve those problems? And then figure out one simple thing, not 20 or 50 different things. Start with a simple baseline level that everybody you can kind of build up to. So it's like a reverse funnel. Instead of a funnel coming down, if you're talking about a marketing funnel that comes down a wide audience, then it comes down to your product, a reverse funnel is building a foundation that everybody that in your market can relate to, and then you start to build up towards the big idea that you're working towards. And in that, that's exactly what I've done with my podcast, with these videos, with my Facebook group, and with my course that's coming out. I'm building this foundation for people, and then my next step is, somebody actually just asked me, can you do a mastermind on this? My goal is actually to start to create resources for people on how to take ideas to market profitably and teach you step by step how to do that. But what I'm doing now is I'm building the baseline with my social media, with my videos, with my podcast, to help people understand and get their mind thinking in a way that produces results through my experience, what I've seen. And I'm also learning this as I'm going on with you guys. So for instance, I've never brought a profitable idea of my own to market. I've usually worked alongside and partnered with somebody that had an idea, and then we helped marry our ideas together to elevate them up. Now I'm learning how to bring an idea that nobody's ever done before to market and test it out, and then I'm bringing that to you guys. And so in this, you need to, if you don't have a lot of capital, millions of dollars to invest in something and to possibly lose. The other thing is in an investment, be prepared to lose money. And be okay with that, and find out how much you're willing to lose and it not break you, not affect you at the end of the day, to test things out in that. And for some people, it might just be, $50, $100, or whatever. At least $300 is good, because you can test that with $10 a day in Facebook ads, for instance, and Instagram ads. But I digress. In that, testing the market viability, if you don't have a lot of capital, start with what you can do, where you have experience, so that you can then build up capital, test the market, saturate yourself in the market that you want to enter. And then in that, you then have to make decisions and actions and have absolute courage. Completely push aside all fear, all doubt, whatever people are saying, whatever people tell you you can or can't do, and focus on where you're headed, where you're going. And I talk about, also knowing where your calling and destiny. But at the end of the day, we also have to then put our hands to the plow, put our hands, like, imagine you're farming, like you have to go to work at the end of the day. And so this is kind of a motivation to you guys. Go to work, test it out, and start with the baseline and then build up from there. And that's how you take a big idea to market profitably, is actually by bringing it down to more of a smaller, simpler, easier to understand idea, and then growing from there. Have a good one, everybody, and we will talk soon. Oops, let's stop this Facebook here.